Throughout its 15 years on TV, The Walking Dead has become famous for its controversial deaths, and Daryl Dixon's Season 3 quietly acknowledged a character that should never have been killed off. The spin-off has returned with a bang, as alongside introducing fresh locations and a new name for The Walking Dead zombies, Daryl Dixon has paid homage to an underrated survivor. Given the franchise's grisly and unforgiving nature, it was inevitable that countless fan favorites were going to exit the series eventually, as these heartbreaking departures helped add drama and stakes to the horror series. However, while some of these moments were handled with care and provided emotional send-offs, others were surrounded by controversy, leaving viewers extremely frustrated. As a result, some of The Walking Dead's most disappointing deaths hugely impacted its overall reputation, with many fans giving up on the franchise entirely. Sadly, this hasn't prevented this same mistake from being repeated year after year, but Daryl Dixon is at least remembering one of the project's most important characters, as evidenced by a subtle scene in La Ofrenda. Daryl silently remembers Isabel in Daryl Dixon Season 3, Episode 2. Isabel, Clemence Poesi, and Daryl, Norman Reedus, having a conversation in The Walking Dead, Daryl Dixon Season 2. Image via AMC+. Having died midway through Daryl Dixon Season 2, Isabel's legacy hasn't been forgotten, as Daryl silently thought about her in his spin-off's recent outing. After starting as unlikely allies, Daryl and Isabel's relationship grew closer over the first 2 seasons and eventually turned romantic, adding to just how heartbreaking the latter's final moments were during Pouvoir's attack on the nest. Although she died trying to stand up to Losang while fighting for her and Laurent's freedom, Isabel's Walking Dead death was extremely frustrating, as it didn't seem to lead anywhere. Thankfully though, the show acknowledged her in Season 2's ending sequence, and it has once again recognized her importance through Daryl silently remembering her in La Ofrenda. With Carol briefly disappearing, Daryl goes out searching for her, eventually finding her watching a young couple enjoying each other's company by the river. As Daryl looks at the duo, his gaze uncharacteristically lingers, seemingly taking a moment for himself before blinking and jumping back into survival mode by mentioning the resources they have with them. While the show never expands on this scene, it seems reasonable to assume Daryl was thinking about Isabel. Their limited time together clearly made a lasting impression on him, and just the faintest sign of love instantly drew the protagonist's mind to Isabel, making it a nice touch that Daryl Dixon hasn't completely forgotten her. It's good The Walking Dead isn't forgetting Isabel, but she still shouldn't have died. Clemence Poesi as Isabel sitting against a wall in her cell in The Walking Dead, Daryl Dixon Season 2. Considering how swiftly the franchise has moved on from other characters, it's nice to see The Walking Dead still quietly remembering Isabel, but it doesn't justify her death. Characters like Quinn, Sylvie, and Valerie seem unlikely to be mentioned again despite their important role in the spin-off, highlighting just how easy it is to be forgotten in the zombie universe. Therefore, it's great that the series is still making subtle references to the character, with Daryl's "Bet on Hope" line in Season 3's trailer suggesting her legacy will continue to be honored as the story progresses. Despite this, The Walking Dead could have easily kept her alive, even if they didn't have any immediate plans for the beloved survivor. Laurent, Ash, and Codron all managed to make it out of Season 2 alive, with the door open for their returns. Likewise, Falu's journey seems to be complete on screen since he decided to stay in France, yet he was still given a happy ending, proving that Isabel didn't need to die, regardless of whether she appeared again or not. This death didn't really spark a huge revenge arc for Daryl either, and while it has briefly impacted his character, having Isabel stick around would have netted a similar result. Overall, I'm grateful that The Walking Dead hasn't simply forgotten Isabel and that she's still a part of Daryl's story and spirit, but her departure still hurts, given how unnecessary it was. Daryl Dixon must avoid making the same mistake with Carol in Season 3. Melissa McBride as Carol looking slightly worried in The Walking Dead, Daryl Dixon Season 3, Episode 1. While Isabel's death may have shocked fans, it hasn't had a lasting benefit to the story, proving Daryl Dixon needs to learn its lesson regarding Carol's upcoming romance in Season 3. Carol has had a few different relationships throughout her time on The Walking Dead, and her next love interest seems to have already been introduced. Eduardo Noriega made his Walking Dead debut as Antonio in Daryl Dixon Season 3's second episode, and based on the trailers and promotional material, it looks like romantic sparks will fly between him and Carol. However, while Antonio may become a major part of the ongoing story, history suggests he is destined for a cruel fate, unless he eventually heads back to America with the protagonists come Season 4, Carol's new Walking Dead love interest appears to be doomed. Frustratingly, if the franchise does continue its trend of killing off new characters, Antonio's death won't do any real good for the overall narrative, especially if Isabel's death is anything to go by.